Hey, everybody. We are back and live again on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and on the Adobe-Canvas website. Go check them out. We have some special guests today from multiple different places. I am excited to introduce some old friends from my old company, Adobe. Amy Hewson is one of our education leads over at Adobe. I want to introduce her and hand it over. Amy, have fun.
All right, here we go, guys. Hi, so today's session, we're really going to focus on a recent collaboration between Adobe and Canvas to get the creative tools right into the workspace where teachers and students are already working. So we're really getting a really fast start on this. We just launched this March 4th, just in time for a world pandemic. So it's been great, but we will be able to share both the integration and one of our early pilot customers with you. This is Holly from the University of Utah. So we're gonna just start off right now with a quick overview of the integration. And I'd like to let everybody introduce themselves, and then we'll go to that quick demo.
Hi, everyone.
Jake, you want to?
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Amy. Hey, everybody, this is Jake Ignatius. I'm a principal over on the Adobe education team. I am live from my house in San Ramon, California.
I'm Ryan Lupkin. I'm the Director of Product Marketing for Higher Education for Canvas. I'm here in Salt Lake City, Utah, and not far from University of Utah, just down the street.
Great. And hi, I'm Holly Johnson. I'm an instructional consultant with our Center for Teaching and Learning Excellence. I'm also faculty I teach design foundations for architecture, planning, and design. Oh, and I'm in Salt Lake City, a mile from campus, and I'm in my living room.
Confession, I'm in my bedroom in San Francisco and trying to hide from my dog and my college students who they've sent home, two home college students. It's great. Living the dream.
I'm doing the same. Hoping my daughter doesn't come in the background and start yelling.
So, Jake, I thought we'd start with you giving a little background on this integration before we run the actual demo. And maybe you and Ryan can talk about how the two companies work together. Absolutely,
yeah. I want to take a moment to acknowledge the times that we're in before we jump into the integration, because a lot of us are getting inundated with emails about products that are free and apps that have free access, and some of them I need, some of them I don't need. So I just want to make sure that our viewers don't see this in the same light, because we're not trying to sell anything. This integration between Adobe and Canvas, which we'll talk about in a bit, this is free, has always been free, and we intend to keep it that way. So this is just, we believe that this integration will add value and make your lives a little bit easier, and we want to talk about that. Talking about the integration, Adobe and Canvas came together in a big way last year to think about, Canvas LMS is used all across higher ed and K-12 as well. And students and teachers use it every single day. And with the integration, which we'll see in a demo video in a little bit, we are bringing these essential learning tools into an environment that you use every single day, and make it easy for you to access these tools. I'm talking about Adobe Creative Cloud when I say creative tools, and talking about the relevance of that in the world that we're in. Creativity is one of the crucial skills to succeed in the world that we're in, and we're in the age of the fourth industrial revolution, and a lot of jobs are changing, new jobs are coming in, some jobs are going away, and a lot of studies show that creativity is one of the top skills to succeed in a world like this, and in a workplace like this, and in the future. So that's bringing this into your everyday workflows. And making it easy for educators and students to engage in creativity to these tools is the value that we're bringing to you. And in a time like this, when educators are trying, scrambling to figure out how to make online classes work, and how to sort of, bring the rich classroom experience in an environment like this, when you're, having classes through Zoom and so forth. Having access to these kind of tools, and we'll see some examples later on too, is having an access to creative tools within the LMS environment is I think very helpful.
Yeah,
Right.
and I think the timing of this just worked out kind of serendipitously. I was really proud of the way the team at Adobe, our own team here at Canvas, came together to actually do a really thoughtful integration, how to deliver it within the product itself through the rich content editor and integrated into our nav. And so we were really excited that the timing of it worked out just as schools were scrambling to take most of their learning fully online and really struggling with how do they do that best. To be able to deliver this creative tool right there in Canvas was just amazing. And so, when we announced it, we were preparing to announce it before this happened. And when we announced it, the response was just incredible. Our community has just really liked it. And again, it is free. There's some simple steps to turn it on for the institutions. And really, we just want to get the word out about that this can be used by all of our educators. And so I'm excited for Holly to show us how they're using it at the University of Utah, because I think it's just really an amazing tool and just a great collaboration between our two companies.
Absolutely.
Great. You know what? I think at this point we'll have Mark just run it's about a 1.5-minute demo of what the teachers and students will see. And I think that'll be a great level set. So that looks pretty easy to use. And from what I hear, it's pretty easy to set up. But rather than take my word, we've invited Holly, who's one of our early pilot customers from working with the University of Utah, to talk about her experience and really kind of to start with, like, tell us first why your school jumped in and was ready to really try this out with us in our first go.
Sure. So a couple years ago, we have some amazing faculty here. We have a professor, Dr. Sita Vergantha. She created a project that was a zine project, and she had wanted to translate that project into an Adobe Spark. So this was a couple years ago, before Adobe Spark was actually integrated into Canvas. There were lots of challenges. She was putting links on Canvas. The students would have to go outside and they would have to find Spark. And it just became this really crazy back and forth. And once you're frustrated, and once your students get frustrated, it's really hard to get them back and to get them excited about a project. So she loved the results of it, but also the integration wasn't there. So starting this year, we were starting our pilot project right after spring break, right when everything shut down. And I was supposed to go in and work with several departments on testing this integration out and having faculty turn one of their assignments into an Adobe Spark, whether it be a page or a post or a video. So fortunate we have Dr. Jennifer Seagrave, whose work I will show you. She teaches a class, it's LEAP 1500, and it's a humanities and diversity class for engineers. So she has 56 students in there. She also has, some of her students are international students. So she has a really wide, diverse class. So within that, she decided I was not able to go in and do the presentation. So she took it upon herself. She's like, I'm going to learn this. She went in, she created a presentation, and all of a sudden thought, okay, this is easy. I can do this. And from there, she did some screenshots of what she did. She posted the assignment in Canvas. She posted a rubric, what the learning outcomes were, and she put it in there. Out of 56 students, she didn't receive any questions. Now, she receives questions all the time. And I'm not being paid to say this. It was really remarkable because all of a sudden they had this power, and especially in this very uncertain time, we had an earthquake, and everything was so disruptive. And all of a sudden these students now that meet face-to-face 3 times a week are now disjointed, and having a synchronous class on Zoom was really impossible. So she was still working, even though we were in week, I guess, 10 or 11 then, she was still working on building that community. So she turned over this assignment, and the students started working, and they had to post they posted their assignments back. I think she gave them a week. And then within that, they posted a discussion post. So she broke those 56 students out into small discussion groups. So each student would share their Spark page, and she invited me to the course to be an observer. So I was able to see those discussions, and it was really moving. There were students that, not only are we at this very uncertain time and a very stressful time, they were telling stories about what their experience is now. And so there was this whole community of compassion. And if that's one thing that I always say as an educator, if we can build in empathy, collaboration, engagement, I've done my job, because our job is we're releasing these amazing citizens into the world. And so to see people telling their stories, and for them to then have these conversations that would have never transpired in the face-to-face classroom. So it was really exciting. The students gave their feedback, and there was a wide range of presentations. So the one that I have pulled is a student. So just to skip back on this, their project before this was all about storytelling, and they were creating zines. So that's a very analog approach, and there was all these questions about the size and the printing and whatnot. So now they got to jump onto Spark, and they got to set that aside. And so some of them changed their narrative, their story that they were going to tell about, just because of the events that we have. So the one example I'd like to show you is the student is Thomas Coe, and he's an engineering student, and he's a freshman. So he changed his zine from being more about his experience right now of what he's going through for COVID. So if I could turn over my screen, I'd love to share his presentation with you. Okay.
Yes.
Share.
And we do want to add that we have permission. We have permission from the students.
Great. Okay, Mark.
Yeah.
Share my screen. Share my screen. Application window. Man, you'd think I've been doing this forever. Okay. So as you see, this is a beautiful presentation. What's really great about the Spark is the fact that students are able to pull images right off the web, and they're free images, and so they're a much better quality, and that's built into Spark. And so here is his presentation. So how will we get out with our sanity? So on this, he's got, just think when your life settles down and stabilizes, you get a curveball. So little did I know, in just 1 week, my life and everyone's lives around me were about to change. So here he posted the letter that was posted from the university. And so all of a sudden they were reading stories online, moving students to classes online. And he said it was in the middle of spring break and he was enjoying his time away from school when he got an email beginning March 18th to move online. So that was really, really stressful. And in here it says the cases were designed to take place in person, his classes. And now in 1 week's time, they were going to convert them all to online instruction. This seemed like an impossible task. So he says, my physics professor didn't even know how to use PowerPoint. So how was that going to work? So within this, then we had our earthquake. So he told the story about our earthquake and the anxiousness and the rude awakening that came from that. And then he works in Park City. So he shared also that he was working at High West Distillery and he lost his job as well as his roommates, whatnot. And so all of a sudden there's this whole impact. And even though there's probably other students in the class that also lost their jobs, and so he's revealing this and he's being very vulnerable. And I think that was the one thing that we talk about, transparency in teaching and being vulnerable with our students. I think this really allowed a safe space for these students to be vulnerable to tell their story. So at the end, he just had to chuckle that it's been hard to concentrate because they're playing music and whatnot. But I think that this is a really beautiful example of a subject he never thought 5 days before this that he was even going to cover. So we also, think about just-in-time teaching, like how incredible to take something that's going on and they're able to process it and really synthesize it into visuals and into a storytelling, which actually is a very healthy response. As we're talking about mental health with our students right now, I think this was a really wonderful expression, an example of an expression for a student going through a crisis. So with that said, I think I'll go ahead and I'll stop sharing that. So Amy, what other questions did you want?
Where I wanted to kind of go next is you have these two great early adopter professors, and it is a kind of a crazy time. Let's all admit that. But where do you see it going from here? Okay. Is it just these early adopters, or what's been the response as you've tried to roll this out in such a crazy time?
Well, traditionally we have at our faculty center that's located in the Marriott Library, we have Friday workshops. And so they're 2 hours long. We usually get 30 people to register. We end up with 10 to 15 faculty that show up. In the past couple of weeks, we started doing webinars on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We have been typically receiving 30 to 50 faculty that are showing up to these Zoom webinars. And they have been condensed. They're 20 minutes, 40 minutes, but they have been showing up. And so if there was ever a sign and that crisis point for higher education, within our campus this semester, we have 6,000 classes. And within that, we only have a 60% adoption rate of Canvas used in these classes. So this is a really excellent time for our faculty to realize that that's the best way for them to communicate with their students. And so we've been reviewing best practices, and I think it's been really exciting for me to see faculty really pivot and seeing the power of how they can change. And so there's definitely a resilience that's been brought in. So this morning at 11, I had a 20-minute, we posted it on Tuesday, that I was having a 20-minute overview of Adobe Spark. We ended up with 100 people registering from across campus, and we had 63 join us on the Zoom. And so it was pretty incredible. What I did is there's so much rich Adobe content as far as demos and lessons, and we've got the edX blog and we have the distance learning. So what I did is I basically compiled that into a Spark page so they could see what a Spark page does. And I put those in there in links. So instead of demoing the product, I basically gave them a product that they can now refer back to. And then I invited in Dr. Jennifer Seagrave to talk about her experience. And the whole thing was filmed, and I actually do have the Adobe Spark page that I'd be more than happy to share with you because it contains really rich information from Adobe and the education creators. So from that, after an hour after the presentation, I had received probably 20 emails from faculty from different disciplines that are on board that would love to try an Adobe Spark project this summer. Our classes are all online this summer. So basically out of this, we're going to be creating a faculty learning community. And how exciting to have this cross-pollination that will happen between these faculty and other disciplines. And now, so once again, this crisis is really building a community. So I have to say that that is really positive. And so this pilot project that we thought was going to like slowly roll out and faculty were going to be introducing this, we had this awesome chance to go ahead and hold hands together, and it's definitely working. So so that's really positive. We also heard from our campus in Southeast Asia, and they sent us a note and said that they wanted to share this information because they see this to be a valuable tool, and especially with that Canvas integration, where you're not having to go outside and put all those links into your Canvas page, that the students can just submit it where it's at. So once again, we're not losing content because our students are frustrated or the faculty are frustrated. And I think, you know, Dr. Jen was very transparent in saying, you know, she was really afraid to do this. She's not a technological person and she's teaching engineering students. And so I think that was a really exciting thing that just happened this morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to say, Canvas from the very beginning was designed to save teachers time. That's kind of one of our core fundamental approaches. And so it makes me proud of the team at Adobe and our team that like they delivered it seamlessly enough that she had no questions. That's a big deal. We really take that seriously. But the other piece is I love that you talked about the, you know, turning to the creative aspect as a cathartic, you know, process in this time, right? We see that all over Instagram. We see that on the news. And so it really is, I think a lot of people are turning to creativity and art, those access, those outlets. And so to be able to access Spark right now and the Creative Cloud is amazing. I just think it's such a great tool for faculty and students. So amazing.
Absolutely. And so a couple comments. So I was able to pull some of the comments from the students. So I'd just like to take a quick moment and read some of them. I know you'd think that this is really organized. Okay, so on this, and these were so heartfelt. So Thomas's reflection was, well, creating this glide show, I got a deeper understanding about how the COVID-19 virus is affecting my life. This is because it required me to think through all the happenings again and gave me a better perspective on how I'm dealing with it by having to write it out and explain it to an audience. It also gave me some more perspective on my unrelenting optimism. Writing this glide show is definitely different than writing a story through text, which is basically the only way I've written stories in the past. I've never focused on images as much as the story until this. It really makes you more intentional with how you incorporate pictures because of how the glide show is presented. The images and text are relatively equal in importance versus a typical written story where the text takes precedence. With a video, the content is primarily provided through the recording. The glide show content is basically all text, but with the images are presented, it gives more of a video feel. I think you could cover more in-depth information in a glide show versus a video since you can scroll over. A glide show, in my opinion, changes the narrative by almost forcing you to be more creative than you would in a typical writing through text. But it also gives you a sort of fluid presentation that captures an audience as well as a typical video. And then another one is, this is a student, and I think the other thing that Jen was able to add in is that there's so many of these students that are afraid, especially say you take an international student where their first language isn't English. That can be very intimidating to be presenting in front of a class. And so here is one student that just said, I think I learned a lot about myself. I'm a person who likes change, fearless of the unknown, and is always pursuing my dreams. I think the glide show is a cool way to express ideas and stories. It's very different than text for sure. If you read the narrative in text, you're always imagining characters and places, but in the glide show, you can see the very place. I think the difference between a glide show and the video is that you can write on the glide show. I really like the way it works. It gives a wholly different experience for the reader and to see what the writer is talking about. So there were just pages of these, and as soon as I had these, I had to, the students' names were removed, but we did have Thomas's permission to present this. But overall, I had to copy them, and I sent them right away to the Adobe team just to say, you've got to read these. I mean, it's really heartfelt, and how amazing in this crisis that now we've provided a critical time, a very positive experience for our students. And now they're going to be looking back on this. We've also introduced them to a tool that was very low stakes. And now this is something that they can think forward in, for in this case, the engineers, they can think about their research projects in the future. And then we also have this to be able to share with other faculty across disciplines to say, hey, look what happened over here in LEAP. Look what happened in Writing 1010. And so now we have this, once again, this cross-pollination and this interdisciplinary work that's going to happen on campus.
Love that.
Yeah, so that's my excitement. It's
I love that. Yeah.
very heartfelt.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to just give, despite the fact that I'm supposed to be the moderator, I'm going to just give a little product definition, because I don't know how many of you know about Spark.
Mm-hmm.
But really quickly, it allows you to do the glide shows that we've talked about. It allows you to do like a voiceover presentation. So you can create slides and do your own voiceover. And it also does still graphics. So it's in one free tool. There's an education version and there's individual versions, but the whole idea is that it's a low entry, and Canvas and this integration has made it an even lower entry for education. So
honestly, I use Spark, at work pretty much every day. It's easy to create still images. I use it all the time, and so it is such a low barrier to entry that's why I use it. I'm not a designer, so it's awesome.
It is a storytelling tool, right? That lets you tell your story in a video or in a post and across devices. And like you said, having Canvas, having it integrated with Canvas is much easier to access now. And I think once we come out of this crazy time, I think we are. This is really an inflection point for higher education and all of education. And I believe that Canvas plays a central role in the transformation. To give you an example, I'm supporting a professor at UC Berkeley, Professor Ernest Gundling, and he runs an MBA course on global leadership. And 3 classes in was when the lockdown was announced, and all of a sudden we are scrambling. How do we, take this class that is designed to run in person with debates on cases and group discussions and presentations, and that has grading implications. The way you present factors into your grades. How do you replicate that in an online environment? And we are using Canvas very heavily, and one of the ways to foster sort of the collaboration and even factor that into grading is to use the conversations feature, the threaded discussion in Canvas. So I think LMS Canvas plays a central role as I think in general higher education, universities and organizations are rethinking of how to incorporate more remote learning into curriculum and teaching.
It's really a disruptive time, and it's going to be really interesting to see how it fundamentally changes education at all levels. I think there's an excitement with some of us. The crisis is we're still in the middle of it, but we're getting there. But I think there's an excitement about how this changes how educators and students connect. And so we spend a lot of time every day talking about it.
We did just have a really good question. I believe the name was Tom from Tom Anchor, which is it available for middle schools and particularly K-12? So yes, Spark does work for both K-12 and higher ed, but because of the age of students, the K-12 version is more centralized, and it has the privacy compliance for children. So that is something that it is still a free product, but your IT, as of today, your IT group needs to grab a domain and then push out free Spark to all of the teachers. It's actually relatively easy to do. And if you want to follow up with me, will track me down. I'll put my email in at the end. We'll get you connected with the people to be able to get that going up in your school. So it does work for grades. We have students as young as, actually I've had kindergartners use it, and you can go all the way up through advanced research papers. I've seen examples from literally kindergarten to PhD candidates.
I've taught my third grader how to use Spark. So,
and Amy, if I can jump in there, so I know Tom had a great comment there. Wendy as well. Fletcher jumped in and said that you were interested in using it for younger students as well. We are doing a session on this same integration next Thursday that is targeted and focused on K-12.
awesome.
So follow in that there'll be one of our customers from up in Beaverton in the K-12 area that will be presenting, just like Holly has today. So follow along.
Great.
Great.
And I think for us also for higher education, this, as we saw this transition, you know, we have to just shout out through K through 12 and their just tenacity and resilience just to be able to jump on. They had packets. They had already been using Canvas. They were good to go. And it was a shining light as far as higher ed that we really this was what we needed to be. We needed this push to jump forward. And I think, so we're also thinking about our students. It's not just the students that we have right now, but who are the students that are coming in? And how exciting now that we're going to have students that from K through 12 have already been using Spark. Their visual literacy is just exponential and their storytelling. And so now we're jumping off of a new territory, right? A new point. And so I think for our faculty to have this chance to start to try this is going to provide much richer content in higher education going forward. So this is a crisis that we needed.
We've used the term force function a couple of times, right?
What was that?
We've used the term forcing function a couple of times.
Yeah.
It's painful, but it's forced, some change that we've needed.
But you know what? We've also seen faculty proud of themselves. Mm-hmm. They have had success and they have figured out Zoom and they figured out Canvas and that is so great because faculty are always learning. And this was a new tool, but how exciting to see them have their eyes open and have a fresh take on where education is going.
Yep. Totally amazing.
So, you know what, here's kind of my, what advice would you have for anybody who is going to get started now, or what would you give the advice that you'd give your colleagues, given the fact that you kind of had the timing of it was like a perfect, instead of a perfect storm, it was a perfect blooming of opportunity. Yeah. So if people want to take that back, what's your advice?
I think one bit of advice is what Jennifer was talking about today, is just jump in. Just jump in and try it out. Do a low stakes. My sister is a doctor in the Bay Area, and she uses this. She jumps in on the free version and she creates posters about diabetes, whatnot. She's not a designer, but she's creating beautiful content for her patients. And so just create something fun. Why don't you create a post that has your favorite quote right now? Create a glide show. And so, I would say just jumping in, create something personal. Do a video with your kids. What's your experience with shopping right now? Something that's very timely, right? That you're building in that reflection for yourself, that your students are having that reflection component. And once you start playing around with it, I think you'll find that it's so simple to use and it's actually fun.
Yeah.
On the presentation that I have, the Spark page that I have, really chunks out what those three different apps are between Spark, Post, Page, and Video. And then I found some amazing, very brief videos that are very, very rich in content. By Ben Forte of Adobe. And so, logging in is 2 minutes. How to use Pages is 5 minutes. And so they're simple enough that you can also share those with your students, and it's a beautiful walkthrough. I think the other thing that I've posted on that are all the rich examples, and I have to just shout out on all the webinars that are happening through the Adobe Exchange right now, that if you're not able to attend them, Todd Taylor, I think he's the pedagogical evangelist going to that site and seeing some of his, those are traditionally 1 hour long, but walking through those, that's really going to, that'll get the spark going.
Yeah.
So I would say, create something personal first, try that out. And then I think as we build more examples, higher education examples, and we're actually creating right now a new spot, a new landing place within our faculty center to start showcasing the work that's going to be produced right now and over the summer and the fall. And in the fall, we have our new CalArt Village that will be opening. It is for 1,000 freshmen. And within that, we're going to have the very first Adobe Creative Commons. And so within that, we are going to have students, mentoring other students. So we're going to have peer-to-peer mentoring. And so that's another place where our students are going to be learning, but we're also going to have faculty coming in then. So I would say there's so much excitement that's happening as far as these tools that, try it out, but there's also going to be a wealth of examples, whether or not it's K through 12 or higher education.
Well, and Holly, we could stay in touch moving forward too, because I want to make sure that we share some of this in the Canvas community.
Yeah.
We've got, I think there's almost 750,000 users in the Canvas community at this point. And so these kinds of pieces, even sharing the common area that you guys are building, links to that would be amazing just to see what's possible. And I think you guys are kind of leading the way.
Yeah.
And
it's shared economy.
It is.
And Holly, can we impose upon you to share your Spark with the Canvas community?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Is that something that I'll send it to you?
What is the bottom of this video? Sorry, when we go to YouTube, maybe we can link those and then also post in the community.
Yeah, if you'll share them, Holly, just share them with me and I'll put them in the comments.
That sounds great. Sounds great.
And one other thing I wanted to decide is not only it's fabulous that you've got this advice on jumping in creatively. If a college wants to say, great, now I really want it, but I want it connected with Canvas, what would you tell them about saying, no, you got to do it? Do you want them to start Spark, go through your journey, or they started Spark and then you went with the integration, or would you just say cut to the chase and go with the integration?
I would say just cut to the chase and go with the integration. Try it out for yourself, build your example. As we are speaking, we're building rubrics, we're building learning outcomes. So there's going to be a lot of shared information. I think it's just putting that assignment in and having your students start from there. Yep. What's nice is once you have that integration, there's that two-factor integration. Mm-hmm. So they'll put in their, so for us at the university, it's their UNID, and that takes them in. It does the two-factor authentication, and then they're up and running. There's also a tool that I didn't cover in the presentation today, but it didn't used to have this, but there's a collaboration tool. So now one of our architecture professors has had students have a project that they're working on site, but then they're all adding to this Spark video. So I think there's additional tools that we have an opportunity to build more content about. So I would say just go with integration. It keeps it streamlined for your students and for yourself.
Love it.
All right. Well, at this point, we want to find out if there's any other questions, either through the chat or through live questions for Holly, Ryan, or Jake.
Let's do this, Ryan. We're gonna give Holly the last word here, but starting with Ryan. Do you want to give us kind of your wrap up of what's the CTA? What are the things that we want to make sure that people know about this integration?
No, I think we've got quite a bit of the assets you need to be able to turn it on, to walk you through, like the video that we're going to share in the comments. Those are also available on our website. There's a COVID-19 page on instructure.com/Canvas that actually has a lot of these resources, and there's actually an Adobe page within that partner page that has a lot of these resources as well. So it's not hard. Go ahead and get started, and we're always either in the community or through Canvas support, always ready to set it up. And thank you so much, Holly, for sharing that with us. It's truly exciting to see, and I think this just gets us really pretty excited about this and other integrations and other tools that we're like releasing in the community. So
great. Thank you.
Jake, what about you?
Oh, plus one to everything Ryan said, and thank you, Holly, so much for sharing these live examples. And we'll be sharing the resources, and everybody stay safe, and just if you want to get started with the tools, just jump in, like Holly said. There's learn, fail, learn again, right? That's the best way to do this. That's all I would say. And also, just not everything is going to be perfect. We're all struggling to balance our lives and work. So, lower that bar and, be kind to yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Holly, any last words of advice you'll give us?
I think it's about collaboration, community, and creativity, right? And the other three are engagement, empathy, and also empowerment. We're empowering our students, we're empowering ourselves, and I think that's really exciting. And I come from a face-to-face teaching studio classes, and so now that I've been with our faculty center for 6 years, trying to do that, the pedagogy of what I use in a studio class, and how does that translate into STEM and humanities and everywhere else. What's exciting for me is to see that these approaches of creativity are not just over in the arts or architecture, that this is really spreading in a disciplinary way. So I think that's really exciting.
Yep.
Love it. Big thanks to our partners at Adobe, undoubtedly, without question, the most creative company in the world, coming together with the greatest learning management system in the entire world. Special thanks to our partners. Special thanks to the U of U. Holly, I didn't want to tell you that Ryan might be a closet BYU Cougar fan, but that's okay.
True. Fake news. Nothing about that was real. Go you.
Thanks, everybody, for joining. We've got another one of these about K-12 next week. So please join us again. Thanks again to Adobe and University of Utah.
All right, go.
Wow,